Look at it, it's so beautiful. This is like my version of the leg lamp from A Christmas Story. I love it. I want to put it in my front window. I also don't know if it's still too like racy for YouTube. Oh no. Maybe I'll put something in front of it. Strategically placed. Hi, hello, it's Audrey Kadri. I put out a video talking about ADHD. I was really happy with that video, but I also realized as I was finishing up the editing on it that I completely forgot a couple of things. They weren't even in my brain at all. I just didn't even script them. I wanted to go over some of those things in this video, as well as kind of address some of the response to the first ADHD video. Also, I'm sorry that I talk about myself so much, but also not sorry, I guess, because I'm making this video. I bring up the fact that I have ADHD a lot, but the reasons for that is one, I have a bad memory and I process things out loud. So when I talk about it, I am literally reminding myself and reprocessing the fact that I have ADHD. And two, the majority of my life has been spent not knowing about these things. And a lot more of my life makes sense now, and I want to celebrate that. That's joyful to me. So something I wanted to say right off the bat, first of all, I am not an expert. I know there's a lot that I don't know. I am only an expert on what my own experience is. So if you suspect that you may have ADHD or any other kind of disorder or mental illness, please try to talk to a doctor or a therapist or a psychiatrist, whoever can diagnose you. But I also recognize that getting access to a diagnosis is not possible or accessible for some people. And I recognize that I've been very lucky to even just have a diagnosis, but also that mine was for free. I know that it's difficult for some people because of money and or access to a doctor, whatever it may be. So I hope for you that you will be able to get that diagnosis in the future. Just kind of cross my fingers for you if that's the situation that you're in. We interrupt this YouTube video to bring you news that is not news. Twitter sucks. So this video is about 80% done. I'd gotten to kind of the final touches stage when I procrastinated for a few days. But that procrastination proved to be a good thing because something happened on Twitter that I feel is important to include in this video. Also, trigger warning, suicide. Elon Musk tweeted, "Wellbutrin is way worse than Adderall, in my opinion. It should be taken off the market. Every time that drug has come up in conversation, someone at the table has a suicide or near suicide story." He also said, "Adderall is an anger amplifier. Avoid at all costs." He was responding to this person, who I honestly have no idea who that is. Person shared a weird opinion about how Adderall and Google searches are ruining society, and shared a screenshot of a paragraph from an article about someone's experience with Wellbutrin and Adderall. This excerpt is from an article called Generation Adderall, which is about a person's experience with Adderall abuse, and I think it's important to note that. Now, obviously, this made a lot of people, including myself, very angry and frustrated. It's important to differentiate between people without ADHD abusing stimulant meds and people with ADHD needing it to help manage their symptoms. Stimulant meds like Ritalin, Adderall, and others have become extremely stigmatized and is hurting the ADHD community. Elon Musk is not a psychiatrist. Wellbutrin has helped many with depression and some with ADHD, and Adderall is very effective in ADHD. Millions have the story of "it helped me," and in a meta-analysis of RCTs, bupropion did not increase suicidality. Hey Elon, I'm a suicidologist, psychiatrist, and psychopharmacologist. I have expertise in every aspect of this tweet. You are absolutely off base here, and your uninformed opinions here are against the evidence. Demonstrate the ability to learn. Now, before I get into the rest of this, I don't know much about Elon Musk. I've never really been interested in learning about him. From my impression of him, I am not really interested in letting him occupy any more space in my brain than what is necessary to make this video. Now, I actually learned about this trending situation because someone I follow who writes and shares a lot about ADHD commented on this tweet saying not to look up what's been going on because it'll only ruin your day. And yeah, it kind of did for me. The response from these tweets from doctors and people who have taken and depend on these drugs kind of broke my heart. Can we not stigmatize medication that many people rely on? Medications don't work for everyone, but just because some people get angry or react badly to Adderall doesn't mean it's a bad medication. It just doesn't work for them, but works wonders for others. Just because one person had a poor experience with medication does not mean it should be taken off the market. This is dangerous medical misinformation, post-reported and disgustingly ignorant. Adderall is not bad either. Cool, you're gonna make life impossible for people with ADHD, and then you're gonna disparage the medication we have to take to function in this hellscape. Great, wonderful. There's already a general mental health stigma. There's stigmas against depression and ADHD, and a stigma against being medicated for them as well. It's already a difficult process to find the right depression medication. It's usually a lot of trial and error and long waits for the medication to kick in. I have personal experience with taking Wellbutrin and Adderall. I take Adderall XR now. I admittedly didn't have a good experience with Wellbutrin. It was not the right medication for me. It didn't help my depression, and I didn't really like the side effects and how it made me feel. Now, does that mean I'm going to take to Twitter and say that it's a terrible drug and it should be taken off the market? No, because I know that everyone responds to medication differently, and even with my personal negative experience, I'm not a doctor, and who am I to say that I'm an authority on this issue? Elon Musk is not a doctor. He's just a guy with far too much money and power shouting into the void of the internet. And this points to a larger issue that people online who are completely unaware of their influence, spouting nonsense, spreading misinformation, and posting bad takes that actually do have an effect on others. Saying things like this on the internet is not harmless, even though it doesn't harm Elon. It's irresponsible. And it's frustrating and disheartening to people who are already struggling to gain access to a diagnosis or a prescription to one of these drugs that could impact and improve their lives. Furthering the stigma around mental health only causes harm to those who are already suffering. Please listen to people's experiences with mental health and mental disorders, not random fools who feel like they're untouchable so they can throw out their opinions about something they know nothing about. I'm not naive. I know situations like this are going to happen again. And I'm not going to be able to do anything to stop it, but it still needs to be talked about and it can't be ignored. Weirdly, this video now mirrors the first one, where I saw something on Twitter and got mad and talked about it. And then I talked about what ADHD is like for me. So we will get back to the original video now and what I had promised, going over things that I'd forgotten to put in that first video. One thing that I realized after seeing the response to the second ADHD video is that I did talk a lot about food fixations and people had a lot to say about that. I didn't really spend much time addressing how to get around those food fixations or how to kind of cope, live with them day to day. And I kind of felt bad about that because there were a lot of people being like, I relate to this, but I didn't give them anything to help with that. To be honest, it's something that has bugged me a lot more recently, and it seems like it's an ongoing struggle. I'm not really coping well with it either. I can share some of the things that may help you, have helped me in the past, but the two things that have consistently helped me with the food fixations is one, making a list of all of the possible meals and foods that I have at that point, and I keep that on the outside of the fridge. Keeps me from experiencing the mental exhaustion of trying to decide what to eat and having all of these options, and gives me like an at a glance, like I know it's there and I can just go and see which one I can try to eat at that time. Another thing that's important is keeping foods visible, and this kind of goes into the problem, which is limited object permanence. Basically, if I don't see it, it doesn't exist, and it's a little more complicated than that, but that's like the basic issue, and that's why across a lot of people's different experiences with ADHD, it's pretty common that produce always goes bad. And for me, part of that is because it's always tucked away in like a drawer on the bottom of the fridge. If there's something that I know I want to eat, and I try to put it in like front and center in the fridge. I don't know if that's helpful, but yeah, keeping things visible is really important. For an example, my sister made me this lovely Easter basket, and there was, candy inside the little eggs, and I was excited to eat the candy. I kept forgetting that I was excited to eat the candy because I couldn't see the candy. Now, the biggest thing that I forgot in my first ADHD video was stimming.
Everybody stimmed. Like sometimes when I'm bored, I snap my fingers. Is that like what you do, kind of? Mine are. Oh. Ah! Yeah, I snap as well.
I'm gonna read the general definition and information about stimming, and then I'll talk about what it's like for me. So what is stimming? Stimming, or self-stimulatory behavior, is when a person with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder repeats certain movements or sounds. Reasons for stimming may vary depending on the person and their environment. I know this is also something that's present with autism as well. Someone who's close to me has autism. We've talked actually a lot about the differences and the similarities in the ways that we stim. So it's really interesting to me. Yeah, so it says stimming is part of the diagnostic criteria for autism spectrum disorder, but it's not unique to people with ASD. That just means that it's not exclusive to them. There's visual, which they list as like flipping pages, watching water, pacing, spinning objects like coins or toys, verbal or auditory, excessive giggling, humming, constant singing, repetition of odd sounds and noises, compulsive throat clearing, or making throat noises. Then there's tactile or touch, so a lot of rubbing fingers, skin scratching, hair pulling, teeth grinding. Biting or chewing fingernails is another common one. Then there's vestibular or balance-based, which is spinning, rocking, swinging, swaying, and then other, which I had never heard of. So this is like excessive gameplay or pretending, sharpening pencils, acting on a movie scene repeatedly. For people with ADHD, stimming can serve as a way to focus their attention and control their impulses. It can also help them calm down when they're feeling overwhelmed or stressed out. So for me, I think I have a combination of stims and then something that may lie closer to the definition of tics, although I'm nervous and hesitant to use that word just because, first of all, there's people on the internet who like to pretend that they have tics and Tourette syndrome for attention and clout, which is, don't do that. But also because I'm just hesitant to use a word from a space that may not actually apply to me. So I'm not exactly sure what these are. And again, like I said, I don't know everything, but I think that they probably lie closer to a tic than a stim based on kind of the definitions. So the difference between the two is explained like this. So a tic is a sudden, repetitive, non-rhythmic motor movement or vocalization. So stimming is likened to having an itch that you want to scratch, and a tic is more like a sneeze that just kind of happens. It also says tics occur on a spectrum, the more severe being called Tourette syndrome. A lot of times when stimming happens for me, I don't necessarily notice that I'm doing it like right away. Like I don't be like, I am going to stim now. I can stop it if I choose to, but usually I don't because again, it's like a soothing thing. Tics is kind of like when you get like those shivers all of a sudden and it just like it's random burst of energy that like runs through your body and then it's done. That's kind of like how I perceive it, especially in myself. I think I've always stimmed, but they've evolved over time, and since I've been able to recognize them, it's easier to see them now as I'm an adult. The tics kind of arisen more in adulthood and in the past year. I don't know why. That's just what my experience has been. So again, I'm not an expert, but I'm going to describe this experience as best as I can. So some of my stims that I've been doing since childhood, they're still like calming and comforting for me. And one of those is like the finger patterns. So like I'll do this thing where like I have like all of my fingers on my knuckles and I'll go like that. And then I just like, yeah, like a lot of stuff with like my fingers and like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, stuff like that. But like this one specifically where I'm just like all of the knuckles. A lot of my stims arise when I'm feeling excited or restless, understimulated, and frustrated. It's a lot like bubbles of energy. And this energy is built up mainly in my hands and my arms and in my throat. And I'll explain that. So a lot of my stims have to do with my hands and my arms. If I get really frustrated, like my arms feel kind of like electric and I just need to like get the energy out. I have a couple of toys where they're like stretchy caterpillars where I'll like swing them around really fast and it like relieves the energy in my arms. And if I don't, I mean, it's kind of like holding in a sneeze. It's just like it feels wrong and it can make me more frustrated. But especially with my arms, like I just need to get the energy out. As far as my throat, I do have vocal stims, what I call the happy sounds or the happy stims. I will squeal a lot. I don't want to do it on camera. It makes me feel weird. But like I'll squeal if I'm like getting really excited. There's also like some nonsense words that I say, like high-pitched voices, especially when I'm petting my cat, like that are completely involuntary. And they all have kind of like the same sound to them, if that makes sense. And I think it's because like a lot of energy gets built up in my throat and that humming from like a squeal or from the sounds is where the energy is released. I don't know why. I feel like I sound insane while I'm trying to talk about this. I was hoping it would make things make more sense. Just jumping in here, I forgot another thing. I think I'm just cursed to forget things while making these videos. So something that I didn't really explain well is that a lot of times the stims, they will happen kind of simultaneously. And then one that I also forgot to mention is that I will clap sometimes to kind of relieve the energy in my arms and my hands, just like clap really hard. So I also have like facial movements in response to some of these things. So along with like gritting my teeth, I kind of do like this. I can't talk and make the face obviously, but I'm like kind of like, and I actually I made it at like the beginning of like filming this video, but I make that face a lot when I'm like reacting to something. Usually kind of call it my cringe face, but it's like a facial reaction. I mean, I'm not saying it's like a stim or a tick or whatever it is, but it's something that also happens at the same time as doing these other things. What's most common is I will get those like 3 of these things together. I'll do a squeal, I'll make the face and like grit my teeth, and then I'll like clap. I don't want to clap hard because of my microphone sitting right here. All of a sudden I'll get like that burst of energy and like clap really hard. And then, I don't know if I didn't explain any of this very well. I'm also very nervous because talking about this stuff makes me self-conscious, and I don't like putting it on camera or on YouTube. I don't like doing it in front of people at all. One of these things like escapes and is in front of someone, I get really nervous. I mean, if it's, outside of my siblings, someone outside of my little ring. Hopefully I didn't forget anything else, but I will jump back in if I did. The issue is that I don't really stim like at work. I feel like I don't really show this side of myself. Obviously I don't really do it. I mean, I wouldn't probably leave it in an edit anyway, but I don't really do it on YouTube. It doesn't really translate online. I don't think I stim at work because of a couple reasons. One of those is that I'm usually medicated when I'm at work. And for some reason when I'm medicated, I don't stim as much. My voice is saying goodbye. I'm also in work mode, like being in YouTube mode or being at home. I can just kind of switch and I'm like, okay, this is how you act at work. It's a little bit of masking, which I'll go into later as well, but like I have a pretty strict work mode, so it feels weird to do and say some of the things that I would at home at work. There's also a pretty strict structure and established routine when I'm at work, and that's what ADHD, at least for me, I respond well to that. I have a very physical job. I'm always moving and I'm using my hands. I'm never just kind of let alone to kind of do nothing and be in my head, which is when a lot of like stimming and tics happen. The tasks at work are also big tasks that are kind of broken into smaller pieces. So whether I am like sorting boxes of freight, it's just like pick up a box, put it where it goes. So those little tasks kind of keep my brain occupied for like the short, period of time that it takes to do them. And so I don't have a lot of empty space left to kind of like fart around. Also, if I'm usually talking to my coworkers, so like my body, my hands, and my mind are like occupied. A couple of my other stims, I will grit my teeth whether I'm excited or frustrated. Like I have to kind of massage my jaw, especially like if I'm like petting my cat, I'll like grit my teeth, and I don't know why. But like he like activates a lot of my stimming and like behaviors because I just get excited even if he like comes into the room. I'm like, I'm not gonna film myself trying to pet him and making those noises because I don't think I'd be able to. It's so cringe. I don't think I'd be able to watch it back, much less leave it in the video. There is a part of my pumpkin spice video where I pet him and you can kind of get a sense of what that looks like. So I'll put a clip of that. I want to say hi to you. Say hi to you. Along with those happy sounds that I make like when I'm petting my cat, I've started to make them when I'm around my siblings, which is really funny. Like I'll like grab their hand and like shake it and like, make a high-pitched noise. I don't know. I just like, I get excited when I see them and I make the same noises and like squeals and then I want to like squeeze them. So it's like just signal of happy sounds, and they usually just tolerate me. I also recognized that, the petting motion from petting my cat was something that like calmed me. And so that kind of turned into like this shaking hand thing. So for when I got a little more excited or more restless, I could like do this and kind of relieve that and not have to like annoy my cat. I actually didn't know that there's a lot of different kinds of stims. There's even like mental stims, which I also have, where like you just kind of repeat things in your brain. Like I'll be just like hanging out and then my head will be like, that's probably another thing. I have the need to imitate him all the time. He probably gets so annoyed. So the tics are like, it's honestly, I mean I made it sound like they're two separate things, but they kind of blur the line because sometimes I just will squeal out of nowhere and they kind of just hit me. A lot of the energy. Bro, you want to be up here? Coming up? Why? Oh, that's probably the most I'll leave in the video. Can't really see him. Hi. Hi. Okay, I need to finish this video. I don't even know where I was. Something that's important to know is that stimming is not necessarily harmful, doesn't need to be discouraged. It can be disruptive. Because it's a calming mechanism, I don't think it should be discouraged. There may just be ways to kind of redirect the energy, or know where it's coming from. Like I said with like the hand thing, I started to just do that on my own to replace the need to like constantly pet my cat. Something else that's important, if you know someone who stims, don't like judge or criticize them. I think part of the reason why I haven't stimmed much at work is because I do kind of fear what my coworkers will think. There's definitely the feeling that like people will think I'm weird even as I make this video. Be supportive and accepting, help them find other ways to reduce stress and anxiety. Like we'll work with them to create a plan for managing stimming behaviors if they're disruptive. Experts believe it has to do with the way the brain processes information, so it may help them focus and pay attention. And this is definitely true for me. When I was a kid, I would pace a lot. So there's actually this story where we had a snow day. We got like a lot of snow in the backyard, and I'd been out there playing with my siblings, and as kind of the hours went on, they one by one kind of went back inside, either to warm up or to do something else, and I eventually ended up out there daydreaming and walking in a circle in our backyard. I walked, I don't know for how long, but like it'd been cloudy and the sun came out, and it'd been a long time, and I'd walked around in the snow in like the same pattern. When I finished my daydream, I looked down and I'd kind of trudged a little trench in the snow because I'd just been walking for a long time and just thinking and daydreaming. Pacing is really therapeutic. Even as I rehearsed this part of the video to myself before I scripted it, I realized I was like whispering it to myself and pacing back and forth from the living room to my bedroom. So it helps me think, and it helps me kind of process things. So stimming is something that I'd never heard of growing up. Even though I did it as a child and as a teenager. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it, because I never heard about it and I just like want to keep bringing awareness to different things. Another thing I hadn't heard of before was masking.
You're supposed to be like hyperactive. No, my environment forced me to internalize all my hyperactivity and mask all my symptoms to make society more comfortable. Just stop masking. I appreciate that, but the mask is ingrained in my brain. It's second nature. It's gonna be a lot harder to rip off than you'd think. And actually, sometimes I lose sight of who I actually am. You're not a sociopath? Nope, just ADHD.
So masking is essentially when someone with ADHD presents in a way that makes them seem like they are not living with the disorder, according to verywellmind.com. So it's also called camouflaging, trying to mimic other people in order to blend in. This little infographic says staying too quiet and being overly careful about what you say, which is so me when I was a kid. I was really weird. I was a really weird child from like kindergarten to about second grade. And in second grade, my weirdness kind of toned way down before I entered like third grade. Like I realized that like the things I did and the things I said were not received well by other kids. They were weird, or they were just like crossing some weird social boundary that I didn't realize was in place. When I was in first grade, I kept pinching my friend's ears like over and over again because I just thought it was funny. Didn't realize that he was getting upset, and I just like kept pinching them like the earlobe, and had to get reprimanded by the teacher because that was weird. It was weird, and it crossed a social line that you're not supposed to keep bugging your friend when they tell you to stop. That experience stuck with me. All of the times that like I thought I'd been like accepted by a group of kids, only to have them end up not wanting to play with me, or I say something weird and they react to it and I didn't realize it was weird. I'm not saying I had a terrible childhood where I was shunned by the other kids, because I wasn't, but I really was just a strange kid, and I didn't understand a lot of these things. I kind of toned myself way down, and I became a really quiet kid. Like, I basically spent a lot of time in my head trying to like reverse engineer all of these social situations, and I became a person who is so perfectionistic about what they say, especially because of this. Because I can't stand being misunderstood. I can't stand the idea of saying something and it not being what I mean. You know, having like kind of like just an outburst of like overconfidence and saying something and then realizing that I shouldn't have. All of those things, like socially, I really struggled with. And now it's just second nature for me to be well-spoken, I guess. Because of like this like gauntlet I put myself through. I think that was one reason why I didn't see myself as having ADHD as an adult, because I was like, well, I was a weird kid the first few years, but then I calmed down, you know. And it was again upon more self-reflection, you know, masking and realizing that like I needed to tone myself down if I wanted to fit in. There's this list of examples of ADHD masking. I've done so many things on this list. So it says staying too quiet, being overly careful about what you say. I've already talked about that. Reacting as you are expected to instead of how you feel inside. Seeming fine and not showing any signs that there is a problem when in reality you're struggling to keep up or maintain relationships. Being unable to relax leading up to appointments and arriving much too early as a way to ensure that you are not late due to time blindness. Bottling up intense emotions until you feel sick inside without knowing why. Attempting to cope with the world by developing perfectionistic tendencies. Oh no. Suppressing stimming behaviors so you don't disturb others. Oh, there's also excessively writing everything down so you don't forget it later because of memory issues, which is what I also do. Something that's really difficult for me is eye contact. It's extremely difficult when I am like not doing well mentally, but it's difficult for me anyway to look someone in the eyes for too long. Trying to maintain eye contact, even though eye contact can be painful for me. It's kind of like just these mental, like sometimes even physical feelings of like daggers. Like I can't stand it. I can't maintain it for more than a few seconds before I'm looking all the way like anywhere else. I've also noticed that like in prolonged social situations, I find it difficult kind of maintain the like, you know, like the social, like, yeah, I'm talking to people and making eye contact, you know, like stuff like that. It's difficult to maintain. And the moment that I like kind of lose steam, I kind of just like have to stare at like the table, whatever it's in front of me. I can be there, I can still kind of talk, but like I can't make eye contact by that point. If I'm just like socially drained, I'm just kind of like, ugh. Oh, masking is also probably why when I get home from work, I get a lot more stimmy and like crazy because I have all this energy of like kind of not having been myself. It all kind of gets released. But yeah, like I think like the reason why this arises is because we're trying to adapt to a world that isn't really built for us. It's built for neurotypicals and people who have different brains from us, and that really does suck. We mentioned like the ADHD tax. We do also have to pay in some ways. That could be like the produce that goes bad that we wasted money on, bills that go through on our accounts and cause overdraft fees that we completely forgot about. That's happened to me so many times, of like forgetting to cancel a candle service and getting charges and overdraft fees on my account because I could not remember a month later to cancel it. It's so frustrating. I just wanted to make this video kind of responding to the last video or responding to the response, I guess, of people identifying with it. I hope that as you kind of progress through life, if you have ADHD, that you'll find things that help you to cope. Others around you will begin to understand and support you, because that's really important, and I'm really grateful for the people who do understand and support me. I hope that if you are looking to get a diagnosis, that process goes smoothly for you, or that you're given the resources that you need. I'm sorry I kind of dropped off into the void for like a month, but I'm back, and I'm trying to get back into weekly uploads. I am also considering starting like a Patreon. I don't know if I'm like a big enough channel for that, but I don't know, if you're interested, let me know. I know it's gonna happen eventually. I just I still need to research and get kind of that stuff underway. Please let me know what you thought of this video, any other video suggestions that you may have. I love to hear them. I don't know why I'm so stressed about this video. This has been a lot of stuff that I've never really talked about, and a side of myself that I've not really shown, especially like the stimming, so it feels kind of weird. Hopefully it's good. My voice is completely gone. Go ahead and subscribe if you would like to see more content. I do have more videos. I love this lamp so much. It was a birthday gift, and I'm so excited to have it. It was something that like I had in my cart for a long time that I never bought, and I finally got it for my birthday. With that, I guess I will sign off so I can save my voice. Double thumbs up, finger guns, high five.